All right, so today what we're going to do is we're going to end this unit by looking at a small section of the small thing about triangles. Now, you're going to be spending lots more time studying triangles as your life goes forward. You're going to be doing right angle triangle properties. You're going to be doing trigonometry, etc. So, knowing some things about triangles will make your life easier as you go. But right now, all we're interested in really is classifying triangles. And there are two ways that triangles can be classified. Triangles can be classified by their sides, and when I say that, I mean the measurement of their side. So the lengths, right? Or they can be classified by the angles that they contain. Two different classifications. And sometimes one of them will kind of run into the other, and we'll look at that. So what you're going to do is you're going to see that there are, and ironically, how many sides in a triangle? Three properties for each one, too. Okay? So there are three properties that you can use for sides. There are three properties that you can use for the angles. We're just going to go to the book and look at some pictures, and you'll see that this is dead easy. But you've still got to memorize which one's which. Okay? That part's a little more difficult. It's going to take a little work on your part. And we might decide to look and see if we can find us a Kahoot to help us in a minute. Since somebody asked me so nicely. Okay, so here we go. Looking at your book, I'm on page 208 if anybody's wondering. So the first one we're going to look at is we're going to look at classification by sides. When you're classifying triangles by sides, it's the measures, the lengths of the sides that we're talking about. And the first one we're going to talk about is called equilateral. Well, it has a key word in there. What's the key word for equilateral in there? Equal, exactly. So the sides are all equal in length. So equilateral means all the sides are equal. And you see a diagram of that there. And notice they put the little hash marks across. That means that you know that those sides are all equal. Yes? We've used that notation before. Okay? All right. The second type of classification by side is called isosceles. Really bad, really Greek words, sorry. But trigonometry usually uses Greek words. And in that case, what happens is at least two of its sides are equal in length. So at least two of the sides are equal in length. Third one. And finally, the last one is called scalene. And that's none of the sides are equal. They're all different. So scalene, they're all different. All right. So we've looked at classifying by sides. Now what we're going to do is look at how you can classify triangles by angles. And you already know the phrases here. So at least there's no new vocabulary here. You already know these words because we've talked about them in relation to angles. The first one we're going to look at is an acute angle triangle. And it's only acute if all of the angles are acute. And what does acute mean? Less than 90 degrees. There you go. Right? Now, again, all of them have to be acute for that to be true. Okay? So acute angle triangle, and we usually just call it an acute triangle. Yeah? It's a very cute little triangle with all those little angles. Okay? If they all are acute. Okay? Second one, this one is no-brainer. It's a right angle triangle if what? You have a right angle in it. And you don't have to say one angle because you can't have more than one 90-degree angle because you can't have a triangle if that's the case. It's too big, right? The most you can have is just one. Okay? All right? So these two would have to be acute otherwise, and you're going to see why in a moment. Okay? All right. And then finally, the last one is an obtuse, and that's if one of its angles is obtuse. And again, we're only interested in one of the angles because if one is obtuse, the others must be acute simply because of the measure of triangles, which we will again address in just a moment. All right, so you'll be doing some exercises, guys, where you're going to be classifying triangles by their sides and classifying them by their angles. There are also a couple where you're going to be using a protractor to measure the angles of the. Yes, and you can just use your own, or you can use the one, but these are on your snowflake, so you can do that. But we do have one other property of triangles that we must address. Okay? Now, and it has to do with the measures of the angles. Right? And it is a little further down. Hold on. And it's right here. Shh, guys, come on. Hush. All right. The sum of the angles in a triangle are 180 degrees. So you need to write that down. You need to know it. So if you have angle A, B, and C, they will always add to 180 degrees. So in other words, if we unfolded a triangle, we would get a straight line. Make sense? Okay? So now what we're going to do is we're going to go through it and we're going to look at just a couple of these together, right? And then I'll see if I can find a Kahoot that we can use for our in-class work. All right, so let's just scroll back up a little bit and look at some of those where you're supposed to look at the pictures and tell me. Okay, so let's just take a look at them and see if we can tell. They don't give you measurements. Okay, so you're supposed to measure the lengths of each one and then tell. We're not going to do that because it takes too long. Measure their angles and tell which ones they are. We'll do that in the other lesson. And then, but let's look at the angle measurements, finding the measurements. Don't worry about this exterior angle one. We're not going to have to deal with that one right now. Okay? So here, look at this one for example. If I know that this angle is 42 degrees and this one is 74 degrees, how could I find the third angle?
You add the two up and minus and 180.
Subtract it from 180. Yeah. So just add the ones you know and then subtract that number from 180 and it will tell you that x is 64. So, yes, you always just add up the ones you know, subtract it from 180. Just like the angles that we did. Now, if that's 42 and that's 74 and that's 64, then what kind of triangle is this? Acute. They're all, yeah. It also looks like it's probably an equilateral triangle, doesn't it? But we don't know that yet. Okay? And don't worry about these on the outside. Don't worry about those. Okay? All right. So let's give you some homework. And then I'll see if we can find some work. Well, if we can't find some Kahoot work to do, but we'll give you this. So you're going to do exercise 10B. It's on page 208. Okay? Now again, you won't be responsible for this if I can find a good Kahoot. All right?
So can we catch up and get our laptops?
Yes, go ahead and get your laptops out. But everybody has to participate, and I need you to use your name.
What are we doing?
Because we're replacing this with work.